So why do these things matter? Why do these statistics come up? Let me ask you guys another question. How many of you, when you were yay big, were thinking about, I could be a doctor. That sounds pretty cool. I can help people. Can I see just a show of hands? When you were younger, if you ever thought that you could be a doctor, raise your hand. Okay. Now let me ask you this. Now that you sit here in this gymnasium, do you still feel like, yeah, I can be a doctor. I can do that. So it looks like fewer hands than what were raised before. And now the important question I want to ask you guys now is, what changed? What do you think changed? And there could be a number of different reasons for why that is. I lost interest. There was something else that I'm more interested in. But some of the more common reasons that I hear is that school is tough. I don't know how to apply. It takes too long. It's too expensive to go to college. And I can't be a doctor. Other things that sort of contribute to this mindset is the lack of having someone that you can talk to about these things, someone that's experienced them. Poverty at times can be a huge barrier to access these resources as well. And then social circumstances, whether they be influences at home, influences in the neighborhood that dissuade you from moving forward with that thought, that ambition, that dream. But can these things be overcome? Can you prove others wrong? More importantly, can you prove yourself wrong? So for me, these are the questions that I thought about with reflecting as to why I stand here giving this speech to you guys today. So I want to share with you just a little bit of my journey through medicine, through how I got here. And hopefully you guys realize that we actually have more in common, even though I've done a number of things now in my professional career, is that we all came from the same place. My father, he actually was born and raised in Mexico. He made it as far as the 6th grade before my grandparents had him working the field because they needed to raise income for the family. They needed to maintain the livestock. My mother, she was born here in the States. My grandparents, my mother's parents, actually immigrated from Mexico, lived not too far from here up in the northwest suburbs, about an hour away, small town. Only Latinos in that community at the time. So when they came in, my mom, my aunt, they spoke Spanish at home, learned English at school. I'm going to fast forward a little bit. My parents are 21 years old, and out I come. So now, my parents, young parents, rely heavily on my grandparents, so much so that my grandparents essentially raise me. They become my parents in home. My grandmother was the one who would take the time to open a book, sit there and read with me. Meanwhile, my parents were busy trying to earn the income and earn the living that it took for them to buy the house, to feed us, my siblings, to clothe us, to provide the basic necessities that we would need. My father worked construction. My mother worked in a warehouse. She worked in 2 warehouses, actually, taking on both a day shift and an evening shift. And that's just to make ends meet. But they're young parents. Luckily, my grandparents were there to help as well. But I played. I had fun. I was a kid. I had a very pleasant childhood. But my biggest influences reflecting back were my grandparents because of the time that they were able to spend with me, as well as my godmother. She actually, after graduating high school here in the U.S., went back to Mexico and did medical school there. So on summer breaks, she would actually come back to the U.S. and she would bring little surgical caps. She would have her stethoscope and allow me to listen to her heart, listen to my grandmother's heart. I was so mesmerized. My grandparents were so proud of her. And to think that she was going out and helping people, that essence of helping people was what drew me to wanting to be a doctor. And from the age of 5, that's what I said, is I want to be a doctor. So I went on and started elementary school, 1st grade, right? Only Latinos in the school, there were 2, myself and another girl. Luckily for me, my father speaking Spanish to me, my mother speaking English to me growing up, I spoke both languages coming in. Now in the first grade, I had the responsibility, I took it upon myself, but I thought it was the right thing to do, to actually translate for the other student in the classroom. It took the school 1 year before a bilingual instructor was hired on staff in order to accommodate. The population has since then changed, and now the Latin population is much larger in the community. But just to give you guys an idea of where things have sort of started. Going on through elementary school, through high school, important skill sets were identified that my grandparents really helped me out a lot to understand, and one of them being the importance of a very good education. Now, you guys are very lucky to be in a school like Cristo Rey. I only really had the public school to turn to. So my parents did the best they could with what they had, and really the onus was on me to try to pick up the responsibility, to put the effort in, to put the time in order to achieve the scores that I needed to in class. Now, grades are one aspect to what got me to where I am, but the ambition and the desire are really the things that fed that ability. Now, aside from that, you'll probably hear from a few of my colleagues, the other medical students who are here, is that some of the things that make you successful as a candidate are the other things you do outside of the classroom, and I want to echo that. Some of those things that I did, for example, was I volunteered as a peer mentor in the school. I volunteered or was a part of the school band. I did tennis as my athletic sport. Outside of the school setting, I volunteered at one of the fire departments in a youth program that actually helped youth understand exactly what a firefighter does, what an EMT does, and I enjoyed it. I got to go on calls. When you called 911, that ambulance came. I was on that ambulance. It was probably the most rushing experience you could ever feel, to actually be responding to a call like that and helping people in a time of great need. So these were the things that I sort of occupied myself. But do you think that I sacrificed going out with friends, watching movies, doing the other things that you guys do for fun? No, exactly. We're all still trying to have fun, we're all still trying to learn things, and we're all still meeting friends, other people. So just because I was invested in these other activities didn't mean that I gave up being social, didn't mean that I gave up having friends, and didn't mean that I gave up having fun. Now, when I was in high school, one of the next questions in my mind was, well, I know I need to go to college to go to medical school. But again, my family was living day to day, so we didn't really have savings for college at the time. And for me, the big worry was, even if I were to get in somewhere, how would I pay for it? So, you know, right around sophomore year, junior year, you start getting papers and ads and books from universities, colleges. And at the time I had thought, well, you know, I think I'm really going to stay close to home. So I applied to the University of Illinois, I applied to Loyola, both wonderful schools. I looked at schools nearby, out of state as well, such as Purdue. And then I got an interesting piece of mail from a school called Cornell. Now at the time, I didn't know much about the Ivy League schools. I really only thought there were two, and that was Harvard and Yale. But outside of that, I had no idea, you know, what they were all about. Pretty much the little seed that was painted in my head was that these are very prestigious schools, very expensive schools. You have to be either very smart or very rich to get in. So that was sort of the mindset that I had come in. But mind you, I get this wonderful booklet, this wonderful spread on this university, and based on only its virtue on what it offered as a university, I had thought, well, I'll apply and I'll see what happens. About a month later, we get a phone call, and it was strange because the person on the other line said that they were calling from Harvard. I didn't believe them. I spoke with them briefly and didn't think too much of the phone call at the time. Then about another week after that, I get a call from someone from Cornell, an alumnus, who said that they would like to come visit my home and speak with my family about the university. Now again, mind you, I didn't know what the reputation of the school was at the time. Looking back, it was a pretty big deal, but at the time I was still thinking with a small mind. So the recruiter came in, spoke a little bit, showed a video. My parents were impressed. They knew nothing about the application process. They knew nothing about the school. They knew nothing about this guy who was coming in to talk. But they felt happy. They felt proud. Indeed, I felt proud too. Now, about 2 weeks after that, I get this big fat package in the mail. It was my acceptance letter. You got to imagine, I'm pretty happy, right? And at this point, I sort of figured it out. I figured out the prestige behind the school. And I told everyone at school, and everyone at school was very proud and very happy for me. And one of the first questions they were asking was, well, you're going to go, right? Now, again, that initial worry that I had was, even if I get accepted, how am I going to pay for it? It's a very expensive school. Just to give you an idea, tuition there, as well as room, board, and all these things, about $50,000 a year. How is my family going to afford that? That was a question I had in my mind. So what I did was, we had a military recruiter in the school, in the high school, and I decided to take it upon myself to meet with the recruiter. I sat down and did the test at the Army recruiting station. They offered me a contract. All this time I was wondering about that financial aid package from Cornell. Well, soon enough, after I had sat down to take that offer and I received the contract deal from the U.S. Army, I received the financial aid package. Indeed, I was surprised. The financial aid letter said my tuition was completely paid for. That left housing and food, which now became very affordable for me. Now, this is something I could not have predicted or imagined, okay? And again, I was coming with a very small mindset of, it's too expensive, I can't afford it, I can't deal with it. But indeed, that's not the case. At least it was not the case in my particular situation. So, gladly, I was happy to accept the acceptance there. And then, upon the graduation period at my high school, one of my friends had made a very interesting comment. And looking back at it, I really wonder how much of a friend he was. Are you guys aware of the term affirmative action? Okay. So for those of you, because I hear a couple no's out there who aren't aware of what affirmative action is, affirmative action was a policy that was instated to try to help underrepresented minorities seek opportunity in institutions of higher education. Okay, so what do you think was meant when my friend supposedly had said, oh, you only got in because of affirmative action? It sort of deflates the whole experience of being happy that you got accepted to a good school, being happy that you received tuition to go to that good school. It takes away from the experience. And while I was at the university, I actually worked at the college admissions. And let me tell you from my own experience working with the college counselors there, no one gets accepted to the university if they don't have the merit to get into that university. So don't let the term affirmative action be something that scorns your experience or sours it. Realize that it's something, if you remember back to those numbers that I was talking about, it's something that tries to level that playing field so that we all have equal opportunity to access that higher dream, that higher level of education. So, great, I'm at Cornell. Wonderful time, wonderful experience. I've gotten to travel. I did some research in Lima, Peru. I worked with the Instituto de Investigación Nutricional. I got to work with partners internationally. And working internationally was that first seed that I realized, not only do I like helping people, but I like helping people locally and internationally. So from there, that international bug bit me. And I continued to pursue it. So when I was looking at schools for medical school, I definitely wanted to find a school that had a mission for service, had a mission and compassion for helping the underserved, and also had the experience and the knowledge to train you in an international basis. And I can be happy to say that Loyola offered all those things to me. The first school actually to return with the application process, with an interview and then an acceptance shortly after. So again, remember, my parents, young parents, 21 years old when they had me. I grew up, lived in an apple orchard in a trailer raised by my grandparents, went through public school, wound up going to an Ivy League institution, had the tuition paid for, going on to medical school. I've made some leaps and bounds along the way, but it started from very humble beginnings. While at Loyola, I didn't stop either. There were a couple of initiatives that I aspired to do right here in Chicago, one of which was reaching out to the Pilsen community. And one of the things that I'm most proud of in my time at Loyola was actually reaching out and integrating our school more with the community. And that was roughly 5 years ago now, five or so years ago, maybe 6 years ago. And since then, the program had expanded immensely. And there's no better sign of progress than to know that you left something and it got better after you left it. That shows progress, that shows change, that shows that other people share that same vision and commitment. And for me, that was probably one of the most joyous experiences during my time at Loyola. From Loyola, I went on and I knew that I wanted to focus not only on being a good clinical doctor, not only being able to see patients in my clinic office and be able to help them, but I knew that there were bigger social problems that were affecting the health of the people that I see. In fact, you guys sitting here probably can think of a few things that you would like to fix in your own communities that you know that can make the health of the people in your community better. So that's what I wanted to do, and that was the focus that I had going on to do a Master in Public Health. Specifically looking at how we can better improve communication, how we can better improve efforts and inclusion partnerships with people who are already doing wonderful things in our communities, and to make sure that those wonderful things get done in other places as well. So I graduated from there and then moved back here to Chicago. That's where we are now. So I've just will be finishing my family medicine residency here in Chicago. Currently appointed at Northwestern, as Mr. McCarthy had pointed out. And I can't say that it's been a bad experience. It's been amazing. I've been able to work with the community of Humboldt Park. Most of my patients, if not the majority of them, are Spanish speaking. And you know, at this point in my career, I have the unfortunate news of telling them I'm leaving. So I'm heading to Washington, D.C., but that leaves all the patients that I've cared for the past 3 years. Their first question to me was, where are you going? It's difficult to find a physician that you feel comfortable with, that you can share and express things with, that you trust. And I have been lucky enough to earn that trust from the community that I serve. And it's an immense responsibility, because now that I'm looking at moving on and moving forward and moving out of Chicago, I feel a sense of responsibility for the patients who have trusted me with their care, and now knowing that one of my colleagues will assume their care. And I have great trust in my colleagues, but those patients have built relationships with me. There are patients I've seen from the first day that they came in for their prenatal visit, through their pregnancy, to the baby that I delivered, to the baby that I follow up in the clinic. I have a wonderful mother-baby pair. Baby's 6 months old now, and the mom said, but I thought you would be the doctor for her as she grew up. I wanted you to see her grow up, go to school. And those are the parts that make it difficult in my level of training, but hopefully the things that you guys can find inspiring in the field of family medicine. There's very few fields in medicine that allow you to see that spectrum, that allow you to be a part of someone's life, to be a part of a family's life in that regard. And it's definitely something that I cherish, and something that I think is probably the most rewarding experience in my journey in medicine. So let me reflect back to a few things that I think are important lessons in my own story. The first of which I think that's the most important is having a good influence in your life. Whether that be a family member, whether that be a friend. And even if you think you're all alone in this process, look to your teachers. Sometimes they can be one of the most supportive assets, one of the most supportive allies that you have. And you guys may not even realize it. Hopefully you do. It's something that I came to realize much later in my time. The second issue, cost. School is expensive, okay? I don't want to diminish that as a true concern, but realize that there are grants, scholarships, there are loans available. And don't let those words scare you when you're trying to pursue your dreams. Keep in mind too, undergrad, 4 years. Medical school, another 4 years. I went off, did a master's in public health, that's another year. Residency for family medicine is 3 years. So I don't want to scare you guys with that, but in that time, I've been able to go to 15 different countries, over 5 continents. I've climbed up Machu Picchu. I've seen the stars over the jungles. I've seen the stars in the deserts of the Sahara Desert. I've gotten married. I saw history happen. I was in DC when the healthcare law was signed. You can still have a life, you can still live, you can still enjoy things, even though it's a long career path. Don't think that there's only one way to do things. Remember, you're all unique individuals. You all have unique interests. You all have things to contribute. And don't let yourself be pigeonholed to just being one type of person. Remember, there are many parts that make you who you are, and you should celebrate those things. But you should also foster your interests, your enthusiasm, and your abilities to grow as professionals, because we need more professional Latinos. Moving forward in medicine, I need more colleagues to help tend to the patients in our communities. And I'm looking to you guys as my future colleagues. So don't consider this a speech of a doctor talking to you. Think of this of a doctor talking to hopefully other doctors in the audience. I look forward to calling you guys colleagues at some point. And for those of you who haven't heard that you can do it, you can. Okay, the cliche, if I can do it, you can do it. Again, sometimes we start off with a rough beginning, but we work things out and we do great things. And hopefully we can do great things together. So I don't want to take up too much more of your time. I think I'm nearing the end of mine. I'm more than happy to answer questions along the way too, and I know that I'll be seeing some of you during one of the breakout sessions. But thank you very much. Gracias a todos. And hopefully we can all work together to make things a better place.